Welcome to Medicare School Daily, where we help you understand Medicare, save money, avoid mistakes, and above all else, get the most out of your Medicare benefits. Now, today's topic is how to avoid mistakes with COBRA and Medicare. Now, folks, as a general rule, COBRA coverage is something that you're probably not going to use while you're eligible for Medicare. Okay. However, there are a couple exceptions to that. There are some times when COBRA does make sense to people, at least for a time, if that COBRA is going to be paid for by your previous employer. Maybe it's part of a severance package. Okay, sometimes that could make sense for a limited period of time. The second reason COBRA can make sense to someone who's Medicare eligible is if they have a younger spouse that is covered by the group plan, and now they're retiring and they're going to lose the group plan, and so this younger spouse doesn't have any other good insurance options, and so you may want to keep the COBRA for the younger spouse, and sometimes there are children that are on the plan as well. All right, so those are really the only two scenarios that I'm aware of where COBRA could make sense. So we're going to address when COBRA does make sense and you have Medicare eligibility, and I'm going to show you how those would work together. So the first scenario is someone who is retired. They're not working, their spouse isn't working, meaning they have no other group insurance available. Now they're turning 65, approaching 65, and yet they still have this COBRA eligibility. So if this is your situation, here's what my recommendation is to you. You must start, and notice I say must start your Medicare A and B during your initial enrollment period. Now, as a reminder, when people enroll into Medicare, there's actually three different opportunities or three different times that we can come into Medicare. One of those is called the IEP, and this is the one I'm talking about here. That's called your initial enrollment period. Another one is called the SEP, or that just simply stands for Special Enrollment Period. Now, anyone that uses the Special Enrollment Period, what's happened for them is they or their spouse continue to work past 65, and now they're ready to come into Medicare beyond 65. They may be 66, 67, 72, any age, but they're coming in at a later date. Now, we're seeing here someone's retired turning 65. So obviously this is not available. They're retired at 65, not working past it. So the SEP is not even a possibility. Now, the last one is called the General Enrollment Period, and this is for someone who has made a mistake. In other words, they missed this one, they missed that one, and so now they're only eligible to come in during the general enrollment period. Well, we don't want anyone to use that. That's someone who made a mistake, and that comes with lifetime penalties. So these two are out, and that's why I'm saying you must start during the initial enrollment period. That initial enrollment period is limited, folks, to 7 months. And in my example before you here is this is someone who's turning 65 during the month of July. They have 7 months, 3 months before they turn 65, the month they turn 65, and 3 months after. And these 7 months, whenever we enroll, will determine when our Medicare is going to start. And so if I want my Medicare to start in July, what do? I enroll these first 3 months, and my coverage starts July 1. But if I enroll into Medicare on my birth month, they always start me the next month. If my birthday's in July, but I don't enroll until August, they skip September, and then I have coverage in October. And so if I am turning 65 and I'm Medicare eligible, I'm already retired, and I have COBRA possibilities, this is the latest date in this example that I would want to start my Medicare. Why? Because I'm not eligible thereafter. I'm not eligible for special enrollment period. I certainly don't want to use general enrollment because then I make a mistake. I have to pay penalties. So in this example, the latest I would ever want to start my Medicare A and B would be October the 1st. Okay, I can put it off that long. If your COBRA is paid for, if it's very low cost, then you can stay on your COBRA, but after October 1, you're going to have problems. So we're going to start at October 1st. Now there's a second timeline that's very, very important. Many people, when they enroll into Medicare, will make a decision that they want to buy a supplemental plan. They enroll in A and B, and they have the supplemental plan to fill in the gaps Medicare pays, but that supplemental plan fills in the gaps that Medicare did not pay. And so notice what happens is your supplemental plans must start no later than 6 months, in this example, of my B date. Because if I try to start a supplemental plan 6 months beyond my B date, then I have to medically qualify to get the supplemental plan. I have to have 25 health questions that I answer in the affirmative. I have, we'll check all your medications. medications, get a statement from your doctor. So you have to go through this medical underwriting after that 6-month window. You have to medically qualify. And if your health is bad, you may never be able to do that. But there's a rule that says once you start your B, everyone in every state has 6 months to be able to pick up a Med Sup plan with no underwriting. They have to take all your pre-existing conditions, so there's no health questions asked whatsoever. So if my birthday's in July, I'm retired, turning 65 in July, and I have COBRA eligibility, I can use my COBRA fully all the way up until October. But then I can go beyond that, but I cannot go beyond 6 months without it having some complications for me. So in my example, I have all of October, November, December, January, February, March. So what would happen is I started my Medicare October 1, but I can actually put off getting a supplemental plan up until 4/1. I would want to start my supplemental plan no later than that date, because during these 6 months, my COBRA will pay second to Medicare. But here, I don't have to medically qualify. So the longest I'd put off in this example would be April 1st, because after that, now I'm going to have to qualify to get a supplemental plan. All right, so those are the ramifications, or those that are turning 65 and the timelines that you would want to use if you're going to use your COBRA benefits. Now, the second group of people that may want to use their COBRA benefits for a period of time would be those that have worked past 65. Maybe they're 67 or they're 69, and now they're going to retire. And again, they're going to look at the possibility of using their COBRA benefits. Okay, here's my advice to you if that's your situation. Again, you must start your Medicare as soon as possible. So let's say that you're going to work through the end of June, and you're going to retire. June 30th is the very last day at work, and you're going to lose your insurance June the 30th, and now you're COBRA eligible on 7/1. I would encourage you highly, if we're going to end our work June 30th, let's start our Medicare July 1st of that same year. Okay, and the reason for that is this, because you're retired and now you have COBRA eligibility, but that COBRA wants to pay second to Medicare. They want Medicare to pay first. So what happens is you have to enroll into A and B, and so that Medicare will be the primary payer. Medicare is going to pay the first of the bills. They're going to pay the 80%. They're going to pay the hospital. They're going to pay those things, and that COBRA coverage is willing to pay, but again, they're going to be second to Medicare. So that's why I'm saying once we're retired and we're eligible, we're going to take 7/1 Medicare, and then COBRA we can keep. Now, keep in mind, let's say that you don't enroll into Medicare and you have COBRA eligibility and you have some kind of a large claim. Well, Medicare should have been put in the first payer position, but you didn't enroll in Medicare, so now what happens? You are going to be the primary payer, because COBRA will not take the primary payer position once you're retired. They will take the second position because they have to, but now you're going to be responsible for what Medicare would have paid. All right? And just like we saw that there were implications for supplemental plans, once you decide to retire and you go on Medicare, you may want to get a supplemental plan. And the same thing is going to apply here. You must start the supplemental plan no later than what? 6 months after your Part B effective date. So if I went on Medicare, Part A and B, 7/1, for 6 months, I can have anything I want during that time, no health questions asked. But after 6 months of that date, now I have to medically qualify. So we can take A and B, we can use COBRA, again, no problem for 6 months. So that would be July, August, September, October, November, December. And now, January 1 on, if I ever want to get a supplemental plan, now I have to medically qualify. So that'd be the longest I would ever want to use that COBRA plan. And so then in this scenario, now Medicare is going to be A and B's first. After January 1, my supplemental plan is second, and then that COBRA would pay third. Probably is not going to pay much, probably won't be much of a balance. But if my spouse or my children are on that plan, then that COBRA plan is going to be primary for them, simply going to be second or third for us. So you may want to use your COBRA. You just want to be sure that you live within these time constraints if you're going to be on Medicare as well. To learn more, watch the related video or check out our most recent video. Also, be sure you click to subscribe for free and get notified every time we post a new video. To watch our complete Medicare workshop, go to MedicareSchool.com. And finally, when you're ready to compare all your insurance options and get free enrollment help from one of our Medicare School guides, call the number on the screen. See you next time.